Hey, Don Beebe, welcome back to Sports Spectrum. I understand you were featured in our magazine back in the 90s. It's great to have you here on the show.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I was back there with I think Robert Brooks of the Packers, and then I think there was one when I was in Buffalo as well. But
Yes.
yeah, great magazine.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time, and this podcast now for about 5 years, and we're just glad to have you here on the show today. Let's start with your playing career because I think a lot of people will remember you certainly as a wide receiver in the NFL, but with the Buffalo Bills, a member of 4 AFC championship teams there. But I think they remember even more that Leon Lett play, of course, in Super Bowl 27. Not a good ending, obviously, for your team, but an amazing play and an amazing lesson learned in the midst of a blowout that we can certainly talk about later on too a little bit more. But how often, I just thought this would be a great way to start. How often are you asked about that play? It has to be at least a couple times a week, I would think.
Oh, well, I will say this, Jason, is here we are, 29 years later, and we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
I bet if it's not every day, it's pretty close to every day that I receive a fan mail letter through the school that I'm coaching at, or the business that I used to have, or my home, because everybody has access to this information nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's every day that I get somebody. I just was just spoke 4 times over the weekend. 3 of them were at Bucknell University, spoke to the Bucknell football team, spoke to student athletes, and then I spoke at a big FCA thing that night, and then got my car and drove all the way to Kansas City from the Philadelphia area, believe it or not.
That's
my
a
wife
drive.
and I. Yeah, me and my wife, we drove, and I spoke at another FCA thing there this past Sunday night. So, and obviously in every talk that I do, I always centered around, depending on who the group is that I'm speaking to, of never giving up on the Lord. And that play is obviously a staple. I always say this, Jason, and this is funny because, as we go through things in life, you never know when God's really using you. You just never know when that moment's going to come. And I will say this. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was, when I was a little boy, growing up in mom and dad's backyard, I always dreamed of playing in the Super Bowl. And that Super Bowl was in Pasadena. I remember the old Oakland Raiders with Fred Biletnikoff and Cliff Branch and, playing in Pasadena. And I was like, that was kind of I wanted to play there. Right. And here I'm living that dream. And here it's the third one of the Buffalo Bills, and it's in Pasadena, Super Bowl 27. I go out an hour before the game, just like I almost did every game. But this one was different because it was a prayer that I will never forget. And I remember kneeling at the 50-yard line an hour before the game, 72 degrees, absolutely gorgeous day in Southern California. And I just said, Lord, more than any time in my whole career, let me glorify your name today more than mine. And I really, really, truly, heartfully had that feeling. Now, Jason, selfishly speaking, when I got up, I felt so good. I mean, it's just like when that spirit just comes on you, you're so just love it, right? That's how I felt. And I was walking off the field and I'm thinking, oh man, there's no doubt I'm going to score the touchdown to win it. I'm going to score a touchdown to win one for the first time in Buffalo history. I'm going to make this JJ Jefferson one-handed stab in the back of the end zone,
Yes.
And no, God gives me Leon Lett. A blowout 52-17, 4 minutes left in the game. And I run the guy down and knock the ball out of his hands. And this is the point I want to make. And this is why it's so God. Is that on the stages that I stand and speak to people around the country, how many people can relate to a one-handed stab in a Super Bowl? Nobody.
Right.
But how many can relate to never giving up? Everybody. And that's how God works. God doesn't care about the score. He doesn't care about even the outcome. What he cares about is how are you using what he gives you to glorify him and not yourself. And I think it's just such a great life lesson that you just never know. And through defeat or victory, you're still the same in Christ. Your identity is in him and not football or whatever that is. And it's just give me a lot of great avenues, Jason, to talk about my faith.
Well, I was just going to say, because what a great lesson to learn when you hear this story. And I'm sure a lot of the kids that you coach, we call them kids, certainly one of them is going to be my nephew, and you coach these guys and they're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. They may not have heard of Don Beebe, the football player, maybe from their parents like me or their uncle, but they may not know about you as a player. They just know you as coach. But then you share this story and you say, listen, it was 52-17. Like, that's every reason for someone to give up and to not give out a maximum effort that late in the game. You're just letting the game go and move on. But that's parallels to life. There's going to be ups and downs and tragedies and difficult seasons of life. And yet it's a great parallel to stay sustained in Christ and not give up on him when
Yeah.
you're going through a difficult time.
Yeah. And that's the other lesson that I like to speak on is, my coach in Buffalo, Marv Levy, Hall of Fame coach, one of the greatest men I've ever met.
Yeah.
He always used to say this a lot. He says, guys, your character will be revealed in every game that you play. Some will be good, some will be bad. Make it good. And it just always stuck with me. And that's the way my dad and my mom raised me. Never giving up was not an option. It just was never an option in my dad's house. And so why do I say that? Because I'm running a fly pattern down the left side of the field. We're getting beat 52-17. Frank Reich was the quarterback at that time. Jim was hurt, Kelly. And Frank fumbles a football. And literally within a second, Leon picked it up and started running. Now, I don't have time to sit there, Jason, and think about, man, do I run him down or do I just kind of jog 10 yards or what? No, I just reacted. I just took off. And I always say this is how you react to something, how you react to it is really your true character. Because if you think about it, most people, especially good people, okay, and especially people that love the Lord with all their heart and they're living this faith every day, you're going to make the right call if you have time to think about it. But when you react to something, and it could be in your marriage, it could be a relationship with your kids, it could be as a football coach to the young men that I coach, how you react to something is really your true character, and boy, that's so revealing because out of the mouth, and this is straight out of the Bible, is really your heart, the words that you say, and that's scary,
Yeah.
and so, that's why I want to try to live a holy life as much as I can because I want the things to be said out of my mouth to represent him and not me.
Don Beebe is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. Tell me about your faith. You've mentioned it and alluded to it quite often here. Where
Yeah.
does that take shape? Where does that begin for you?
Oh, it begins and ends with that. I mean, it's just, I've never known my life without Christ. Grew up in a Christian home. Mom and dad loved the Lord. I have 2 older sisters, 2 older brothers. We've taken a vacation together as a family for 52 years. It's to be 52 years. Nobody's ever missed. Now the party's 59 BB members that go and nobody's ever missed.
Wow.
Everyone of age that understands faith has a relationship with Jesus Christ. 59. Okay. Now there's some kids that are babies yet and stuff, but I was 7, Jason, I was 7. I knew exactly what it meant to give my heart to the Lord, to live out, my faith in him and try my hardest to give the glory to him instead of myself. And so I've never known a life without Christ. I've never wanted to walk away. I've never had to rededicate my life because I've never walked away. Have I sinned? Oh, heck yeah. Who hasn't, right? I mean, we all sin, but the difference is this, and I just did a Bible study and I actually lead the Bible studies here at AU. We call it, Church at AU. And one of the things that I preached on this year was how do you know you're really saved? I mean, how do you know you're really a Christian, that you're living a life for Christ? And I always take it with a three-step process. Number 1, when you sin, and we all do, we all fall short of the glory of God. Do you feel convicted? Does the Holy Spirit come over you and you feel convicted and you feel like, man, why did I do that? Why do I keep doing this? Right. And then number 2, do you confess it? Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lord. And is it a meaningful? Is it a, not just the words, but is it meaningful? And then number 3 is the most important. Do you repent, walk away? And I think that is the difference between, somebody that may say it and not really live it. Because, I know that we're not called to judge anybody, but, at the same time, by their fruit. The gospel of God says, by their fruit, if they're one of his children. Yeah. And so going through that 3-step process was a lesson I think all of us need to learn. And really, are you living for Jesus, man? I mean, it should be evident when people meet you. They should see Christ in you. Yeah, they're going to see the sinner in you as well. Okay. But there's a difference when you have Christ living in your heart.
What was that like when you got to the NFL? You were a third round pick and
Yeah.
you come to Buffalo, and this is a team that was just on the cusp of going on this run. In '89, I think you made it to the playoffs and lost to the Browns, if I'm remembering correctly. '90s, the Super Bowl run that goes all the way to '94, and just an amazing run there with an amazing bunch of guys. But you come into this atmosphere in Buffalo where it's the NFL, it's professional football, the world's coming at you, certainly trials and temptations you have to imagine. What was it like trying to continue to stay faithful to the Lord when you became an NFL player?
Well, okay. First of all, it's always hard, no matter what you do in life, because you can always find trouble.
That's true. It's not just in the NFL. That is true.
No, it's really not. And I think that it's the three most important decisions that you're going to make in your life are A, your salvation, number one. Number two, who you're going to marry somebody godly.
Yeah.
And three, hang around with people that love the Lord or are good character people. That does not mean that you don't go out in the street and preach the gospel to the lost and whomever that may be that God puts in your path. But fellowship with godly people, because they're going to hold you accountable. And my 6 years in Buffalo, I'll be honest with you, my roommate was Frank Wright. And, it's funny, we would go on the road and we would hardly ever turn on the TV. We would a lot of times just share what's going on in our lives, and, how's your walk, and challenge each other. And Frank used to challenge me a lot. And I loved that about our relationship.
Mm.
So I'll be honest with you, I missed that most than playing and all the other things. I missed the camaraderie, the groups of godly men that we had in Buffalo and in Green Bay, and so it was just, those were the great times. I mean, when you're in, Bible studies or small groups 4 times a week, I don't get that anymore. Church, church on Sundays and Wednesday night Bible studies, and that's it. But I'm glad I'm married to a godly woman because we talk about the word almost every day together. So that's what I would encourage somebody. So when I got into the NFL, I'll be honest with you, it didn't change me.
Hmm.
The people around me changed. I will say that, because they look at you differently. But it didn't change me. I was never driven by money. I was never driven by fame. I'm not going to stand in front of God one day and he's going to say, hey, great job on Super Bowls and great jobs, all the wins as a coach and all that stuff. He don't care. What he cares about is, I brought this guy to you in 2022, be it Caleb. What'd you do with Caleb? Did you nurture him his walk, or did you tell him about me, or whomever that was? That's what I'm going to be held in judgment for.
Hmm. So when you're in the NFL, you say people around you changed. Was that vital to you to stay not just firm in your faith, right, but to keep that circle tight knit, right? Because you have more people who know you, who you are. You have the Leon Let play, right?
Yeah.
And even though you lost the game, it's still a chance for more people to know who Don Beebe is. Obviously, if you're a football fan or a Bills fan, you knew who you were, but a lot of people are starting to know you. So fame, for lack of a better word, is coming to you, notoriety. And I've just seen so many people struggle with that, even those in the faith that have come on the show, so many athletes that just struggled. And they said it was about their circle of friends. And when they let go of that tight knit circle, that's when things started going awry.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I always say this to young, the guys that I coach, and, because I coached in high school for 14 years as well. And that's such an impressive time. People, they hang around the wrong group and they want to just fit in. And college as well. And I always tell guys, listen, I've never drank beer. Okay. I've never smoked. Okay. I didn't have sex before marriage. And all these things. And people are like, man, you're crazy. What's wrong with you?
Right.
To be honest with you, and it's because of my parents again. And this is why parenting is so important. I took it as a compliment. It really was. They make fun of and they say these things because they want to be that. But they don't have the courage to stand up in the face of, hey, I'm not going to go to the party tonight. Hey, I don't want to drink, or I don't want to do that. And it's funny, now that I'm older, some of the players that I played with in high school and even professionally, matter of fact, superstars, players have said, it was the maturity in Don's walk. And Frank could say the same thing too, because I've heard it said about him as well, that, they saw something that they wanted, and they really wasn't willing to have the courage or the maturity to stand up. But then they found it later in life. So the seed's planted, and that's why I always looked at it. I said, listen, I'm not going to change these people. There's no way. I'm not, that can only come from the Lord, but I can, through God's help, plant seeds. And that's really important for me to remember, because again, I go back, Jason, to that's what I'm going to stand in judgment for.
Yeah.
And that never, I always vision what heaven's going to be like, and I always get this vision that I'm walking down the streets of gold, and all of a sudden some guy comes up to me, or some girl comes up to me and says, just wants to shake my hand. And they always say two words. They just say, thank you. And I'm like, for what? And then because I heard you speak one time, or the example that you gave, or whatever it was, the seed that was planted, they just say thank you. And boy, that's an exciting picture that I never want to lose.
Yeah, there's the moments when you actually do talk to someone and share Christ with them, and maybe even help lead them to the Lord. But I think there's going to be moments when we get to heaven that we don't even realize took place, like you say, where you might have shared about your story with Leon Lett, or maybe we were, together at a dinner or a breakfast or something, and somebody just said something that really impacted them, and it helped plant a seed that led them to an opportunity to say yes to Christ.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be so many of those. And that gets me juiced up. That gets me excited to want to live your life in a way that is honoring God, because you just never know what impact you might be able to make.
You really don't. And again, going back to Coach Levy, you never know when that moment's going to happen. And he talked about football games. We're talking about the game of life. You just never know. That's why you try so hard to live a holy life. And people are like, well, how do you do that? Well, I always use the example of a football player. If I don't know the playbook, how am I ever going to play in the game?
Yeah.
And so if you never read the word and you're never on your knees, 1 Thessalonians 5:17 tells us to pray without ceasing. That's continuously throughout the day. You're driving to work. I could be praying while we're talking right now,
Sure.
And but yet, if you fill yourself more of knowing the playbook for life, which is the Bible, you're going to live a holier life and a better example of who he is and was still, as when he walked on the earth. So I don't know. I just don't ever want to lose that perspective and get caught up in the world of coaching and wins and what the world just wants to dish out on a daily basis, because it's so empty.
We're so glad to have Don Beebe here joining us on Sports Spectrum, on the Sports Spectrum podcast. As you transition to later in your career and you go to Green Bay, and I think a lot of people might forget that if you're not a big football fan, they might associate you with the Bills and even the Leon Lett play. But you played in a bunch of Super Bowls here and even won one. You played in 5, I believe, appeared in 5 Super Bowls in 9 seasons, which is not a bad ratio. It's not Tom Brady, but it's pretty close, Don. I mean, in the amount of Super Bowls that you got to play, but you got to win one with Green Bay and the Packers in 1996. That was Brett Favre's only Super Bowl, of course. And what a great group of people there under Mike Holmgren. Tell me about what that was like for you to experience a Super Bowl on the winning side. I believe that game was in New Orleans and you beat the New England Patriots. Tell me about that Super Bowl and that experience for you.
Yeah. First, I'll set the record for you as far as Super Bowls.
Yes.
I was actually the first person to be on 6 Super Bowl teams. Right. So 4 with Buffalo and 2 with Green Bay, but I was hurt. So if you're hurt, it doesn't count as one to participate, but I was on that team the whole year. So I was the first to be on 6. Mike Lodish is the first to actually play in 6 Super Bowls, 4 with Buffalo, 2 with Denver.
Yes.
And then obviously Tom has taken the Super Bowl thing to a whole nother level. It's called the Tom category.
That's right.
But yeah, so going to Green Bay, which is a story in itself and really a good life lesson story. But when I get to Green Bay, I was quoted in the paper, said, listen, if I got to carry the water out to Reggie when he gets tired, I just want to be on a team, because I really thought that was going to be the team to win it, because they had just lost in the NFC Championship the year before to Dallas.
Yes.
And I wanted to be, and I thought Green Bay was a team. And sure enough, I get there, and that year was my best year statistically. It was an incredible year. It was the only year of my 9-year career that I played in every game and wasn't hurt. Every year I pulled a hamstring or broke a collarbone or I broke my leg. And there's just so many, I got hurt a lot. And then, but that was the only year. And then God blessed me with the Super Bowl. And I remember the game itself. There's no way I was losing this game. I'm just going to tell you, there's no way I was losing this
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And so I'm the safety guy. The game's over. I'm 10 yards behind Favre, watching that last 10 seconds click off the clock, looking up at the clock, and then it just went crazy, right? And I walked up to Favre. You watch the video. I walk up to Brett. I tap him on his shoulder, and I said, "Hey, Brett, can I have that ball?" And he said, "Beebs, man, you deserve it." Gave me a hug. And I went over there, and as I'm walking over to where my wife and my two children at that time, I shared a moment with them, and it was just so cool. NFL Films actually was doing a piece on me, Reggie White, and Leroy Butler. Eugene Robinson, actually. So the cameras, wherever I went, they were following me. So I got this whole footage of this stuff. It was just phenomenal by NFL Films, which are the best.
Yes.
And I remember after my kiss with my wife, and I gave her the ball and all this, and I turned around and I walked off the field with my 4-year-old daughter and my 2-year-old son, who just, by the way, finished his 4th year with the Minnesota Vikings. Crazy.
Chad Beebe, of course.
Yeah. So that he's living that life now. And I got to walk off the field. And it's funny, Jason, you know what really, really struck me? As I actually felt guilty. I mean, I just thinking to myself, why me? Why not all the other guys in Buffalo? Why not Marv Levy and all the people in Western New York, all the phenomenal fans, just incredible people.
Yeah.
Well, I just wish they could all be experiencing what I was feeling. So it was kind of anticlimactic for me. Extreme joy, but at the same time, man, I wish they all could be with me, the Bills guys. But yeah, it was a tremendous moment. There's no question about it.
They're not far off, by the way. You know, I'm sure you know, watching them. I mean, I think they got as good a shot as any team this year to finally get over that hump and win that Super Bowl. I mean, they got all the pieces in place.
They really do. I was actually predicting last year it was going to be the Packers against the Bills in the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that been so?
It was close. I mean, they were both right there and had opportunity. Isn't football so strange, though? I was telling somebody this past weekend, you know, we were talking about, I was at a conference with some NFL guys that were there speaking at it, and we were talking about the Rams being the Super Bowl champions. And yes, they deserve it, and they earned it, and they won it, and had a lot of talent and did everything they needed to do to win it. But you have to have a certain few things go your way, right? Because the Rams would have never hosted the NFC Championship game if Green Bay didn't lose. You know, and they played a team like the Bengals, who were an upstart team, and obviously they were a great team too. But Kansas City and Buffalo were sort of playing each other out of that opportunity in the way that they played in the divisional game. It's just all about circumstances playing itself out properly, right? Because all 4 of those games that Buffalo lost, maybe not the 52-17 game, but there's opportunities even early on when you can look back and say, man, if it just went this way instead of that way, who knows what could have happened? Yeah,
there's no doubt. Our biggest problem, though, to be honest with you, Jason, was our mentality during the course of that game was not great. And let me give you an example.
Which game are you talking about?
The Super Bowl with Buffalo.
Yes.
And the difference between Buffalo and why Green Bay won it and why Buffalo didn't. Because Buffalo had more talent. I'll be honest with you. There's more talent on that Buffalo team than there was in the Green Bay team if you just looked at it per position. Yes. But this, for example, Super Bowl, our 4th Super Bowl was against Dallas again. It was in Atlanta. And we were winning at halftime. I think it was 17-10 at halftime. And we were handling the line of scrimmage. We were going to get the ball first to start the second half. And so we're coming out, we're thinking, okay, let's put a drive together, get up 10 or 14. Let's kind of put this way. And we're going to finally win one, right? No, we go out there, and unfortunately Thurman fumbled the football, which was a great strip by Leon Lett, actually. Stripped Thurman of the ball. And James Washington, their safety, picked up and scored a touchdown. We're like 3 minutes into the half. So there's a whole half to still go. You come to the sideline, the score's tied. And you would have thought we were down by 30 already. The deer in the headlight, nobody was saying a word, very quiet, no encouraging, no leader standing up and just saying, hey, let's go, including me. I was quiet. It's like deer in the headlight. And then we land up getting blown out. We don't score another touchdown. We get punched right in the gut, and they went on to score 2 or 3 more touchdowns. And so fast forward 2 years now, I'm with the Packers. And we go up 10-0 early in the game. And next thing you know, Bledsoe hits boom, boom, 2 touchdowns. We're down 14-10. And you come to the sideline, and I'll never forget it. And I was one of them now. And everybody was just like, hey, guys, we're fine. We kept talking. We kept encouraging each other. I remember Reggie and Eugene Robinson and Leroy Butler. everybody's like, these guys aren't that good. We're going to get these guys. Well, halftime score was 27-14.
Hmm.
And then we went on to win it in the second half. And Reggie had 3 sacks in the second half and set a Super Bowl record, and we put him away. The difference was how you handle the emotion in a big game. And I even coach this now. When we get into a big game, playoff game, for the conference title game, I said, the team that handles the emotion the best is most likely going to win. Throw talent right out the window. We're both good. Okay. So let's handle our emotions. That means when you make a mistake, guys, it's okay. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Just get over it, get the next one. Or if you make a great play, don't get so jacked up and too emotionally high that it just drains you. Just stay even keeled. It's a long game, guys. And I think if Buffalo could have done that, who knows what would happen.
Well, we'll see. They might have a shot at winning one this year. We'll have to see how it all plays out. I do want to ask you about coaching. When did you realize that was the next step? Was it right after you finished playing? Because I'm doing the math here, and the high school that you coached at, Aurora Christian High School, before you came to Aurora University, that started in 2004, if I'm doing my math, and you finished your career in 97, 98. So there's a gap there. And I'm just wondering, did you always know that coaching ultimately would be the place that you'd end up?
Yeah, I knew. That's a great question. I knew I was going to be in the mentoring business. Okay. I just knew I had a calling. I knew it was going to be around athletics. Certainly coaching was a definite possibility. So I took a lot of notes and stuff from people way smarter than me. And when I first retired in May of 98, I finally announced it. It took me a while, about 4 months of training. I just had to get it out of my blood. I was scheduled to get on a flight to go to Oakland and sign with the Raiders. John Gruden was the coach there. And I just called my agent and said, I'm not getting on the plane. I'm done. And this was in May. And right after that, I was still training, and my partner, we decided, let's start a business that trains athletes. Nobody was doing this back then. 98. I mean, you couldn't find anybody. We are the grandfathers of speed training in the whole Chicago area. And I think we were 3rd in the country. And so we started House of Speed. My wife came up with the name House of Speed because it was after the House of Pain in the Astrodome.
Yes.
And that's how we came up with our name. And we trained for 23 years, but 6 years into it, Jason, I just felt the calling to be more of a mentor at a more personal level, intimate level, really getting to know kids. Because through training an athlete, you see them once a week and then they're gone. But I wanted to get into coaching. So I did. And God just started opening doors. He opened the door over to Aurora Christian High School. They had no football field. They had no weight room. They had 17 kids in the whole program. It was the Bad News Bears on steroids, believe me. Wow. And through God, and just watch how God worked. I mean, we built this phenomenal facility with field turf, went on a string of, winning going to 3 state titles and winning 2 of them, and just turned it into a really, really cool thing. And then after doing that for 14 years, 10 as a head coach, and then my son got into the league, I wanted to go see him play. I stepped away from 2018, stepped away from the whole year. And I knew I wasn't going to go to high school. I thought about going to NFL maybe or college. And then God just opened the door here at Aurora University. But I sat out all 18. I explored a lot of options. God called me to Aurora University. I would have never thought of that. I would have never thought about my hometown university. And I was really excited after I got to meet with the AD, who's a great guy. The president here is a phenomenal person, Dr. Shurik. She's an amazing person. And I was very fortunate to work under 2 really cool people and still do. So I'm going into my 4th year. I love coaching here. I've signed a long-term deal. I'm going to be here for probably 8-9 more years. And I'm on a boat up in Minnesota to Wisconsin on a lake somewhere, never to be found again, Jason.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, when you got to Aurora, you, I don't know if you inherited a team, but you had a lot of success right away. I mean, it's been 3 seasons. Yeah. You got 2 NCAA playoff berths, 3 conference titles, a 20-5 overall record. So there's obviously success there. What's been the key for you, do you think, as you've been able to have success quickly? Because I think a lot of coaches, when they come into programs, it takes them a little while to sort of build it up, or whatever you want to say, to kind of get you acclimated to the program. And for you, you've had a lot of success pretty quickly.
Well, okay. So what I'm about to say, I don't want to come off wrong, because I know where my strength and my power comes from. Okay. It ain't me, but I will say this: God has used me in an amazing way in coaching. I always believe that when you're in the will of God and you're really doing what God's gifted you to do, it's a great place to be, you
I
know?
agree. Yes.
And so when I got on campus here, I saw a lot of similarities that Aurora Christian had. Aurora Christian, like I said, 17 kids in the program that year. They've never won a conference title. They've never beaten two teams in their own conference. Two teams that never beat before at Aurora Christian High School. And then I saw a lot of similarities here. I mean, since 2008, since they got into the NAC conference, they had only won one conference title. Well, we've won 3 in a row, and we haven't even lost a conference game yet in 3 years. But I remember my first meeting, and I think this is really important to know, no matter what you do in life, is my first meeting, there's 73 guys that came to the first meeting. Okay. It would have been December of 2018. And I walk into the room. They have no idea who the coach is going to be. And I know none of them. I took the mic, and the very first thing out of my mouth, I said, if you're a senior, I want you to come to the front row. 21 seniors came to the front row. I said, I want you to stand, turn around, look at your team. And I want each one of you, and we're going to start with you over here. Tell your team what you would like to accomplish this year. What would you like to see your team do? And the first kid, he says, guys, I'd like to create chemistry and have a lot of fun. I said, no, let me stop you there. And his name was Connor. Let me stop you there, Connor. I said, I'm not talking about that. We're gonna create chemistry. We're gonna have a lot of fun. Believe me, we're going to. Because any coach that's not doing that shouldn't be coaching.
Yeah.
I said, no, I want to tell me what you'd like to see. Tell your team what you'd like to do, accomplish. And he goes, oh, I got you, coach. He goes, win the conference. Because they only done it once in school history in that conference. And then 17 more guys said conference title. Finally, we got the number 18th kid, and he goes, man, I'd like to be the first team to ever win a playoff game. And so 3 more guys said conference or playoff game. And I said, turn around, guys. I said, now I know why you're average. Don't take this wrong, but I know why you're average. You think average. I said, the 2 biggest reasons why teams don't win, or a guy doesn't accomplish something, or a woman doesn't accomplish something, and we could talk about life in general, but let's just talk sports right now. 2 biggest reasons why: you don't think you can. You don't actually think you can win the national title, or you're just too lazy. You don't know how hard you have to work to achieve great things in life. I said, that's going to change right now. This very second, it's going to change the way you think. We're going to eat, sleep, talk, train, practice. Everything we do is going to be to a national title. Okay. And you could see their faces. They were like, man, we've never heard this before. Or they thought it was crazy. One of the two, right? Well, that year, 2019, they went 7-0 in conference. They had 1 close game. The rest were blowouts. They were 9-0 for the season, and we get into the playoffs, and we're at the selection show. And on the top of the bracket, it says Aurora University, and under the bottom, it popped up St. John. Well, that would be equivalent to a FCS Division I team coming up on the top of the bracket, and then North Dakota State, popping up. Or, you're going to play Alabama, in the first round, right?
Sure.
That place erupted. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, God, we got St. John, because St. John's the winningest program in D3 history. The Gallardi Trophy, which is the Heisman Trophy of Division III, is named after their coach. Okay, so they're pretty good. Yeah. And everybody in the room knew it, but they couldn't wait to get on that bus and sling the stone. I'll be honest with you, man, they were just so ready to play. So we go up there, we're a 40-point underdog. I mean, hey, listen, this is the story of David and Goliath. And we go up there, we're winning the whole game. And with 6 minutes left to go of the game, I think we're up 9 points. And we had a major blunder on kick return. It went through our guys' legs and it goes at the 2-yard line. And it was just a disaster. And so they stopped us and they scored right away. And then next play, we got stopped again. They scored again, and we lost 51-47. It's the second most points ever scored on them. Why do I bring that up? Because this is why. 21 of the 22 starters in that 2019 that almost won that game were the same guys in 2018, exact same guys. Yeah. And St. John went all the way to the semifinal game that year and lost on a last-minute field goal, or they would have been in the national championship game. So I tell kids, listen, I don't have a 3-year or 5-year plan. We got a 1-year plan. This year we're going to win it. And I've actually had dads sit in my office, and this is funny. Man, aren't you kind of building pipe dreams? I said, man, I'm glad you're not my dad. And I say it in a way that's not degrading or anything.
Sure,
and
of course.
I said, because here's the thing, guys. I said, if we're striving to be excellence and high character and getting good grades and do all the right things, When you do it the right way, you're going to win a lot more than you're going to lose, for one. And then two, if you believe the impossible, you got a chance, because only one can win it. And if you don't win it, okay, I promise you this, you've achieved such great things that they're going to be great at something else in life, and they can always live with what happened that year. Because I know that 2019 senior group changed the culture at Aurora University. They changed the way the guys think, right? Do we think we can win the national title this year? Hands down, no doubt. I mean, we're not even embarrassed about that. Yeah. Okay. And you shouldn't be. I mean, because if you don't achieve it, then it was worth the journey, because it's not about winning. Let's forget about the winning aspect of it. It's about the journey to win. And that's what I don't want players to ever second guess for the rest of their lives, because it's going to make them a better dad, a better husband, a better employee or employer, whatever they become. And that's what's the most important in life.
That's so great to hear. And I'm personally excited because I'm going to get to go to some Aurora University football games the next 4 years, because my nephew, Caleb Romano, will be joining your team in the fall. So exciting times, Coach, right?
Yeah. And Caleb is exactly what we look for. We recruit three things at AU: character, character, character. If they don't have character, we don't want them. I don't care how good they are. I really believe X's and O's don't win football games. I really, to a certain degree, don't believe that talent even, wins football games. Look at what we almost did in 2019. Matter of fact, that first year at Aurora Christian High School, when 17 football players, they went 10-2 and went all the way to the quarters, and they'd never won a playoff game in the school history. Wow. And so that's, I guess, what I'm saying. And with a kid like Caleb, and I told him on his phone, I said, man, I wrote down one word, a lot of notes I wrote down, but one word: you're a winner. I mean, you're a winner. No matter where you've been, you've won. He went to the state championship, after coming out of New York and going down to Florida. He almost won a state championship in his first year. They voted him captain, I think it was. And literally, he'd only been there on campus for a short period of time. Listen, you talk to the coaches, you talk to his family structure is strong, solid, believing kid. He lives out his faith. I mean, those are the kind of kids we look for.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I could just, shake my head and say, yep, because obviously I know him really well, but I love hearing you say that. And I'm excited to watch the next few years and watch him learn under you. And it should be a lot of fun to see Aurora University. I got to ask you, as we close here, where's the vacation this year? You said 52 years it's been.
Sure.
That this straight Beebe vacation has been happening. Yeah. Where are you going this year?
So we always go to a north central Minnesota. North Central Minnesota. And we've been going up there for 52 years. And we just love to fish. We love to spend time in the cabin. On Tuesday of the second week, because we always go for 2 weeks, on Tuesday of the second week, or Monday, depending on the weather, we have this huge campfire, and all the family gets around the campfire and we just worship. People share stories that's going on in their lives. And then we always end by picking out somebody. So it's two people get together in a little huddle group, and we pray for each other for that upcoming year. It's just exactly what families should be like, Wow. And that's the same thing that I want to incorporate into the football team. I mean, we're family, and the ties run deep when you really love them and you really care about them. And I give all the credit to my faith and my dad, my mom and dad.
He is Don Beebe. This is fantastic, my friend. Thanks for being here on Sports Spectrum. And I look forward to shaking your hand in person, hopefully very soon, and coming to see a few games. But just appreciate you for sharing all of what you shared. It was great. Thanks for joining us.
No, you bet, Jason. Thank you for having me on.